Hey, it's another little Wayne bite. Just a little taste of this and that. And this week I'm celebrating Thanksgiving, but I'm doing it on a smaller scale. Some of us are going to be on our own or just with one other person. So I'm making dishes that are much smaller, much easier to prepare for one person rather than these big massive meals that we normally do for Thanksgiving. Now, before we get started, just a reminder, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You get more recipes, craft ideas, travel tips, even restaurant reviews, all in the same spot. Just click on the subscribe button and the notification bell so you always know when new videos are coming out. So what I'm going to have today is I'm going to do a Cornish game hen with a wild rice dressing. And it starts off with my wild rice. I've got right here about half a cup of wild rice that I'm putting on my bowl here. And I'm going to add to that enough water to cover, maybe about 2 inches worth. And I'm going to bring that to a boil, and that's just going to boil for about 40 minutes. So we'll get back to that in just a few minutes. Let me set it up here. There we go. Boil away, little guy. So I've got a Cornish game hen. This is about a 22 ounce, a little under 1.5 pounds. And what I did was I washed it and patted it dry. And what I'm going to first do is take the little wings here and bend them back and put them underneath so it lays flat in my baking dish. That's number one. Number two, what I'm going to do is I'm going to season the inside, turn this around here, with a little bit of salt and pepper. And the amount's not critical, just don't go crazy. Don't get too worried about measurement so much. A little bit of salt and pepper. I'm also inside of there, I'm going to put about 1/4 of a lemon and a little bit of rosemary, like a sprig of rosemary goes in there. Doesn't have to be fancy or pretty. And then also I'm going to put about 1/2 tablespoon of butter as well. And that is going to go in there. So that's good. Now what I'm also going to do is tie the legs together. And this one came with a little broken leg, unfortunately. Poor little guy. I'm going to take this leg here, tie that with a string first. And then bring both legs together. Again, a little damage to this guy. There we go. Easy peasy. Very simple. All right. Now the next step is I've got a little bit of olive oil that I'm going to just dab on there. I'm going to rub that all in. Nice and coating everything because you want to get a nice brown bird when you get this in the oven. And then I'm going to season that with a little bit of salt and pepper again. Again, this salt is not going to be used after I've touched my hands in the salt and in the bird. And also I've got a tiny bit of paprika as well. Sprinkle that on there. Just a little bit. Perfect. Now, I'm going to transfer this over to a baking dish. This over here. Baking dish, and pull that away. Now what I also have right here is I've got about 1/4 of an onion. I've got 3 cloves of garlic. I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil to that. I'm just going to toss that together. Get all that blended. And I'm going to put this in the baking dish as well, just all around my bird. Easy enough. Pretty basic so far. Now first of all, let me wash my hands to get them nice and clean. Always be careful when you're working with poultry to be sure your hands are nice and clean, which I've done. So now this is going to go into a 425-degree oven for the first 25 minutes. We're going to roast that now for about 25 minutes at 425. Then I'm going to reduce the temperature down to 375, and it's going to go for another 20 to 25 minutes. But I'm also going to be basting it with a nice little basting sauce, and that's right here. I have in my bowl here, set it there, my other ingredients. I have 1/2 cup of chicken stock, along with 1/4 cup of white wine, and about a teaspoon or so of Dijon mustard. I'm just going to mix all that together. Get in there. Now again, I'm going to drop the temperature to 375 after 25 minutes, and then I'm going to start basting it with this basting sauce for another 20 to 25 minutes. And you want the internal temperature to be 165. That's the appropriate temperature for chicken. Now, important to have a little thermometer like this because that really helps you make sure you got the temperature exactly right. And these are insta-read thermometers. They take about 2 to 3 seconds for them to read the actual temperature, which is perfect. And over here, my wild rice is boiling up. It's still got about another 10 minutes to go, but you can see it sort of opening up there and looking pretty good. So what's going to happen is when this is done, I'm going to drain it, rinse it in cold water, drain it again, then set it aside, and ultimately I'm going to saute it with some onions, some celery, some apricots, and some mushrooms. It'll make a really great side dish to go with my Cornish game hen. I'm draining my wild rice after it cooked for about 40 minutes, and now I'm getting ready to make the dish while my chicken is still in the oven. So I'm going to start my pan here. I'm going to add to that about 1 tablespoon of butter. Ooh, there you go. And about 1 teaspoon of olive oil. And let that get nice and hot. All right, butter melting. I'm going to add to that my onion here. It's about 1/4 of an onion that's chopped down. Now this is going to be about a 2-person serving of the wild rice. I didn't want to make it just a single serving because you might enjoy it the next day. So I'm going to saute these onions for a couple minutes, probably about 2 to 3 minutes until they're nice and translucent. I'm going to add to that 1 stalk of celery that has been thinly sliced. That goes in. I'm going to cook both of these down for a little bit. While that's going, I'm going to baste my chicken again. Now to this I'm going to add about 4 ounces of baby bella mushrooms. They're going to cook down as well. And keep the temperature medium low because you don't want this stuff to cook too quickly. The mushrooms are going to release a lot of liquid, so it's going to take a little time for them to really break down. So don't burn things by having the heat too high. Now, as a matter of fact, as I'm making this, I realize this is going to be a lot of wild rice. So I'm going to actually put down in the information section a half version of this recipe. So if you want to make an even smaller amount, you can certainly do that. But all the basic steps are still the same. So that's nice and tender. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add about a teaspoon of fresh thyme in there, a little flavor. Everything's nice and tender now, so I'm going to add in my drained wild rice. Go. I'm also going to add 1/4 of a cup of chicken stock. And I'm going to add in 4 apricots that I've thinly sliced as well. You stir all together just until everything is nicely blended and nice and warm. Wait for some of that moisture to cook down. I'm going to season this with a little bit of salt and pepper. Like that. And I'm going to wait for that little bit of moisture that's in there to fully cook down. It's just about fully dry. I want a tiny bit of moisture still left in there, so I'm going to turn off the heat now. I'm going to add 1/2 cup of slivered almonds and mix all that together. Now again, this ends up being a lot larger than I anticipated when I made it, so this is good enough for probably 2 servings or maybe even 4. So you can either cut it in half, which I give you the half recipe, or even cut it into 4ths if you like, but I think half is probably fine. Now that it's all mixed together, I'm going to transfer this to my serving dish, and it's ready for my game hens to go along with it. Beautiful. Now that is my wild rice. Looks great. I'm going to add on top of that just a little bit of chopped chives. And we're good to go. And that's ready for my Cornish game hens to go with it. Well, here is my chicken. It has roasted for about 45 minutes total. The internal temperature is at exactly 167, which is actually 2 degrees warmer than I want, but it's still okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this very gingerly, using 2 things that don't hurt my fingers, and I'm going to drain this and then put my little guy here on baking sheet here, and I'm going to cover it with aluminum just to stay warm. And I'm going to take the rest of these juices now. Where's my strainer? Right here. I'm going to set the strainer right here, and I'm going to take the rest of these juices and put them in my pan here. Just like that. Perfect. I'm going to cook that down now and thicken it a little bit by adding a little bit of butter and then a little bit of capers at the end. Then I'll serve everything up and be ready to go. So you see how thick it is right now, or I can see a little trail when I run my spoon. That's just how I want it. I'm going to bring this down to a very, very low temperature. Really, really low. Then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of butter. Sort of whisk that together. Get a nice thick sauce. Get in there. And I'm going to blend that in until it gets nice and thick. Okay, well, that's all blended together. I'm going to add a tablespoon of capers in there. And that, my friends, is my sauce that's going to go with my Cornish game hen. So time to plate everything up. Here we go. Nice. Nice. All right, so I've got my chicken. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to take my chicken here and add it to my plate. Go gingerly here. There. Nice. And bring you around right here so you can see it nice and pretty. And then I'm going to add a little bit of my wild rice here on the side. And again, this is probably like a 3 or 4 person serving, perhaps. You can dial it back a little bit, but leftovers are not a bad thing. Ugh. Beautiful. Okay. And then I'm going to add a little bit of my sauce here, which again, it's my capers with a little bit of butter sauce. And that's gorgeous, isn't it? Really, really nice. Wow. That's a nice Thanksgiving for one, huh? All the information you need is in the information section down below. The full recipes, half versions of the recipe as well if you want to make it even smaller. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Also, leave me your comments. I'd love to know what you think about this recipe, the ones in the past, and any ones you'd like to see in the future. Thanks for watching again. Please subscribe. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.